Welcome to this episode of One on One, where we look at the athletic scene in Barbados with Gabriel Burnett, OLY, the head coach of the St. Michael's School. Yes, today we're looking at the Cougars and how the athletics program has evolved to produce so many highly acclaimed athletes in Barbados. Welcome to our program, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell me about this acronym at the end of your name, OLY. I'm guessing that means you are an Olympian.
Yes, OLY is something that the IOC, International Olympic Committee, they have started. So the same way a doctor gets to put DR in front of their name, all Olympians get to put OLY after their name.
So if my memory serves me correct, you were on the Olympics team to Sydney.
Yes.
With Oba and Victor and
Andrea. Yes, that was probably the height of my athletic career. Sydney, Australia, I did the 110 hurdles there. Everyone remembers that Olympics for Oba's bronze medal. But that was a great experience for us. Me personally, it wasn't the best because my roommate had chicken pox, so we were in quarantine and we got out 2 days before we competed. But the overall experience of being an Olympian as an athlete, nothing surpasses that.
so we will talk about that quarantine experience later and how that would have helped to prepare you for future events. But I want to start today with your experience, your first time experience as a coach. Tell me about that very first opportunity where you transitioned from being an athlete yourself to taking on the responsibility of grooming other up and coming athletes.
Okay, well, that experience started back in university, St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina, where my coach, George Williams, who I believe he's the greatest coach ever, he gave me the opportunity because as an athlete, he saw that I used to help the other athletes. So after the Sydney Olympics and I returned to North Carolina, I was actually being evicted because I wasn't able to pay my rent and stuff, and I was living off of cereal and Kool-Aid for 4 days. And my coach, he came and he took me to the supermarket, bought me a bunch of groceries, paid off my rent, and he took me in the president's office the very next day and told her, this is my hurdles coach, this is my sprints coach, this is my strength and conditioning coach. And that's where it all started for me.
I can imagine that in that moment you were probably moved to tears. And certainly in my own recollection of my own life, I can remember instances like that where it was certainly darkest before the dawn. What did you take from that experience that helped you in coaching?
I don't know why you brought up tears because they called me the crying coach. I cry real quick, especially when I see young people achieve things. But from that experience, it just showed me that you need people around you. Don't care what level you are at. You need people around you. You need a positive team that can help you go from strength to strength. So when you're even in your darkest moment, like you said, when you're at your weakest, at your lowest, you always need the help of someone else. And that is basically how it is here at St. Michael's School. People see Gabriel Burnett as the face of St. Michael's School track and field, but Gabriel Burnett has a great team around him. And when I say a great team, I mean a great team of Desiree Critchlow. She coaches our jumps. Akeem Beman, he coaches our throws. Cody Leacock, he and I, we work with the track events. And then our management team, we have Christine Smith. She teaches English, and she's the overall manager. Then we have Mario Hoggle, who's a Spanish teacher. He's our boys team manager. And then we have Reddy Thomas, who's another English teacher, and she teaches, she's our girls manager. So we have this team that we come together, and we always look to see what we can do next to keep St. Michael's School up there.
It indeed takes a village.
Yes, for sure.
So every year without fail, we can look forward to a near perfect performance by the St. Michael's School team at BSAC, the Barbados Secondary School Athletics Championships. And then we follow these big names on to Carifta and to international meets and so on. What is different about the program here at the St. Michael's School that I'm sure even now as parents are trying to make sure their child's exam results get them in the right place, their children who have athletic ability will certainly have the St. Michael's School name on their lips. What is different about this program here?
I think what separates St. Michael's School from others is that we really have bought into student athlete, and we push the academics as well as the athletics. When I first came here, and I was given the reins for the track team, our girls came 8th, and our boys were like 16th or 17th. And that's the worst we ever came, and I really doubted myself. And I called my college coach and we had a conversation. And then he gave me that belief that I needed. And one thing that he taught me was that it's all about the athlete. Because someone can be training well and then they have an off day. You can't get down on them or anything like that. You have to know what's going on with them. So my coach taught me that. And then when I came here, Mr. Perkins, he was the principal. And he was the same way. He was student oriented. And then after Mr. Perkins, when Mr. Perkins was leaving, I was worried about what sort of principal we would get coming after Mr. Perkins. And I will never forget Dr. Mears. She came after Perkins, and I met her coming up the stairs. And she said, "You're Mr. Burnett?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "You have nothing to worry about. I love sports. The same way that Mr. Perkins supported you, I'm going to support you." And she gave me a hug, right? And we took off. We actually won our first championship under Dr. Mears. With Mr. Perkins, we were always there knocking at the door, right? And then Dr. Mears, we were able to get that title. And what we, like I said, is because we are so student-oriented, right? We always have the students' best interests at heart. We would have some top athletes, and we would not just put them in events. We'd always consult with them to see how they feel about doing this and that. We look at the schedules and see where we can fit someone, right? We don't want them tired out, risking injury and that stuff. So, and that's how we do all of our sports programs. If you look at St. Michael's over the years, sorry, not St. Michael's, that's bad. The alum will kill me for that. If you look at the St. Michael's School over the years, right, we've grown from strength to strength. And all of our sports teams do exceptionally well. We've won badminton, basketball, volleyball, right? We've always been winning over the last, well, I mean, not always, but over the last couple of years, we've always been winning. 2023 was a down year for us. And when I say down years, we came second in almost every competition. And we have set our standards so high that coming second in everything bummed us out.
Wow.
Right? So we went back to the drawing board, and we're going to come really strong next year.
So, as someone who considers himself a youth advocate, I am very heartened to hear that there's this very student-centered approach. I want you to delve more into that for me. For example, we have the nutrition policy that is beating a lot of people over the head because of the cultural change that it is requiring. I am guessing and hoping that for you and your athletes, it's almost come and join us. We've been here waiting for you to come up to this level. Talk to me about that and perhaps the mindset as well. So not only looking at the student academically and athletically, but diet and mindset, so that if I'm hearing you right, you're catering to the whole individual.
Yes, that is St. Michael's School on a whole. What I do with the athletes here, I remember their children. And I was a child. And I loved my candy and all that stuff as a child. And long before the nutritional policy came into place, what I always did with the track team, they were not allowed to eat any junk food. So from the time you make the St. Michael's School track team and we have that meeting, I let you know. No junk food. If I catch you with it, I throw it away. So all these sodas, I will take them away, right? And that is just the way we have been. And then when you become a core member of our team, that is something that we take with you throughout the entire school year. So if you see of our prominent athletes, Rhea Hoyt, Darian Clark, Kyle Gale, Josiah Paris, Brianna Boyce, Jaden Pierce, Leah Barker, Ayanna Morgan, all of them, when they became core athletes of the team, they would never, ever eat any junk food. And what I liked about how they started to operate, if they saw someone doing it, they would either tell me or they would take it away themselves. And the funny thing is that all the names I just mentioned, they're my club, Quantum Leap. Right, so St. Michael's School and Quantum Leap, we're tied to each other. So like 90% of Quantum Leap is the St. Michael's School. But then when you're looking at the nutritional, like I said, they're children, right? And it's really hard for a child to go all day without having some sort of sweetness. Even for me, I love a plus. We try our best here. It's something that we promote at the school. Our canteen and stuff, we do promote the healthy lifestyle. We have been doing that before the nutritional policy, but now we're doing it 100%. So it is something that we as a school, we do support it. I do support it. I can tell the athletes of Quantum Leap, we do support it, right? Because it's very important. And the way you eat, right, is very important. Even when I was an athlete, I would go the whole season. I would not eat a chocolate. I don't drink soda this period, but I wouldn't eat a chocolate or anything like that.
So tell me what you would eat though, because people would say, okay, you're telling me what not to eat, but then what are your athletes eating? I personally want to know because they're so awesome. I am curious. I remember when, what's his name? Usain Bolt came on the scene. I Googled to see what he was eating, and I was very shocked to see something like chicken nuggets and sweet potatoes, but I digress.
I'm glad you brought that up.
What are you emphasizing that these children actually do eat?
I just tell them not to eat junk food, right?
Right.
Corn curls, candies, that sort of stuff, right? But if I was to tell you, or if I was to tell a child, eat yam, eat cassava, I would be a hypocrite. Because I don't eat that stuff and I've never eaten that stuff, right? But because my metabolism, I'm from training and stuff, you burn it off, right? So athletes are totally different. You said Usain Bolt, you saw him eating nuggets and stuff. That is a fact. I remember when I went to the Olympics, Alan Johnson, he was one of the top athletes in the world. He's won Olympic gold, he's won World Championship gold. Alan Johnson was always that. And in the Games Village, they had McDonald's and everything. Alan Johnson was always at McDonald's eating nuggets, same thing that you said Bolt was eating, right? So athletes, they will eat, but then they just know what not to put in their bodies, right? So I can't tell you, for me, what's vegetables? Coleslaw. That's me.
My grandmother would be very upset right now.
But I have to be honest, right? And for me, vegetables is coleslaw. The first time I ate broccoli was when I was feeding my son. And I'm feeding him the food, and we get the broccoli, and he didn't want it. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, broccoli's vegetables is good for him. So I sucked it up, and I ate the broccoli so he can see daddy eating the broccoli. And then I got him to eat the broccoli.
So then a larger percentage of this SMS effort, as I'm calling it, is mindset then?
Yes.
So tell me about that.
We have this belief that we are not to lose. In reality, we have lost more than we have won, right? But we go into every championship, and I'm not just talking about BSAC, we go into every single sporting championship expecting to win. When I was a student here, When it came to football, we feared St. Leonard's. When it came to netball, we feared Springer. When it came to track, we feared Commonwealth and Harrison College. Now, with the group of teachers that we have, we fear no one. And when I say we fear no one, I mean we fear no one. So when people see St. Michael's School, we're out there with our flags and stuff, that's because we believe we're going to do this, right? And we take our cheerleaders to basketball games and to volleyball games and to netball games because we had to change the entire culture of the St. Michael's School. So now when you go to BSAC, you see St. Michael's School children chanting, keeping a lot of noise, right? We have pep rallies at the school now before BSAC, right? And that all came with changing the mindset of how the St. Michael's School is. In the past, we would just be in the stand sitting down and yeah. But now we up, like they say with the big dogs, right? So we keep in noise too. And that is an entire change of culture and mindset that we have brought to the table. I think me being overseas, it gave me a total different mindset, being in the collegiate system and stuff.
Yes.
So when I came back, that's why we're called the Cougars, right? Before it was just a St. Michael's School, but we decided we're gonna have an identity, and we started branding. And I didn't choose the Cougars. None of the members before that I called, they didn't choose the Cougars. The student body chose the Cougars. What we did is that we had a bunch of athletes. We had a big number of athletes, animals. 5 or 6 animals and what they meant. And every PE class, we gave the students and they voted. And Cougars came out on top because of how fierce a Cougar is. And we did that and we started branding. Now you see us with our shirts and our hoodies and our caps and stuff. We've changed the entire landscape in Barbados. Now other schools are doing it. And we try to set trends here at St. Michael's School.
Awesome. Definitely cannot miss that lime green when you're at BSAC.
Yeah.
Talking about being pioneering, Glow Sports. Take me into how that came about, because for me as an onlooker, I just thought it was brilliant. But I want to hear what were the consecutive activities or events that led up to this idea being birthed. You would have had it for the third time this year.
3 times.
Right.
Okay, so Glow is probably one of our biggest things right now. And how it started, our sports was scheduled for a Tuesday at the National Stadium. And I think the Wednesday before that, the sports council called us and told us we couldn't have sports because they had to do some repairs and stuff at the stadium. And then we were at a loss, what could we do? And Thursday morning, we had house prayers. And I went around to all the 4 houses and I explained we may not be able to have sports next week because they're doing repairs at the stadium stuff, but we're going to come up with something. We knew we were going to do something, we had no idea what. And 2 teachers, Miss Thomas, who is our manager for the girls team, and Dr. Ford, who's a music teacher. They came to me at separate times talking about having sports at night. And Mr. Ford came to me first, and his idea was to have different evenings where we can go and do a different event, right? And then I want to say I spoke to him around 9:30 or so. Then around 11:15, Miss Thomas came to me and she said, let's do sports on Friday night. And I was like, Well, Mr. Ford just came with me with something like this. Did they all talk? She said, no, we didn't talk. But she said, let's do sports a Friday night. It's a Friday night. People have, then all of our students, their parents, they can come and watch them. They don't have to take off from work and stuff. They can come and watch them. I was like, okay, sounds good. Let me try it. So I spoke to the other members of the PE department. They all liked it. I got on the phone and I called Dr. Mears. She was in a meeting, but she answered the phone. She said, I'm in a meeting, talk fast, something wrong? I said, well, we can't have sports, as you know, but we want to have sports on Friday night. And she said, you think it can work? I said, yes. She said, okay. Pitch it to the student body. If the student body is for it, we'll go with it. Just she didn't hesitate or anything. And that's what I loved about Dr. Mears. She was always supporting us. So she told me, have assembly that same Thursday evening. So the last period, we had assembly. And I pitched the idea to the student body. And I pitched it as a track meet, a classic, not just inter-house sports. I pitched it as a classic. And at the end, I asked, if you do not want to be a part of this, raise your hand. 2 children raised their hand. And then everybody erupted. And everybody, we were all excited. By the time I got to quantum leap practice that evening at 4 o'clock at the stadium, people from other schools were telling me they want to come to St. Michael's Sports Friday night. I was like, what? How do you all know about this already? But the excitement was there. And then that same night on IG, one of our students, Aki Hollow, he put up something saying Glow Sports. So you see, even the name Glow Sports came from the students. He put up something on IG saying Glow Sports. And we were like, what, Glow Sports? So I showed this to the others in the chat. And we were like, yeah, this is it. And we just went with it. Up until the next week, and we planned it in a week, because that happened the Thursday. Then the next Wednesday is when it hit me how big Glow Sports was going to be. Because the amount of people were talking about their coming and stuff. I had a girl from Alexandria. She said, sir, you need to call my father and tell him that I can come to Glow Sports. Right? And that is when it hit me, okay, this is going to be huge. And that first year when we had the Glow Sports, at one point, I bent over in the middle of the arena and I looked around and I started to cry. Because I was like, we pulled this off in a week. St. Michael's School was able to do this in a week.
Some things were just meant to be. And yeah. I think the most beautiful part of that whole recount was the fact that the students were the ones that were really the driving force.
Like I said, we all about the students. So Gabriel Burnett can never take credit for Glow Sports. I plan the schedule and organize it and stuff, but you would never hear me take credit for Glow Sports. Dr. Ford, Miss Thomas, and Aki Hollow.
And the students in the background being consulted all the way, which again ties in with that student-centered focus that helps to make the champions that are the Cougars. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back to discuss more with Coach Burnett about the SMS effect and the athletic excellence that is taking place here at the St. Michael's School. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Danielle Reed Malilo and I'm a general physician, and today we're going to talk about knowing your risk for obesity. In Barbados overall, 2 out of 3 adults are overweight and 1 out of 3 adults are obese. Also in children, 1 in every 3 child is overweight or obese. There's some health parameters that you should know about yourself. These parameters are your blood pressure, your HbA1c and fasting blood sugar, your weight, and your BMI. At home, you should have a blood pressure monitor, a glucometer, which is a blood sugar machine, and a scale. And from time to time, you should document these readings, and you should also be familiar with these readings. You can also take a diary with the readings to your doctor so they can better help manage your condition.
Welcome back to One-on-One, where we examine the SMS effect with head coach of the St. Michael School Athletics team and founder and head coach of Quantum Leap Athletics Club, Mr. Gabriel Burnett, OLY. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So we've come forward. I want to go back again. Tell me about Tokyo and being in the bubble and the whole Olympic experience. Your first time leading the Barbados team into an Olympic Games.
Yes, as a coach, being named the head coach of the Olympic team, that is the pinnacle of it, right? Because the Olympics, that is the mecca of sports. And Tokyo was awesome. I mean, although we were in the bubble, we didn't get to see the country, and I really felt for the Japanese, right? Because I remember there's some nights coming back on the bus, and you would see some of them at the corner, right before the bus depot. You would see them at the corner with their placards waving and holding the camera. And I was like, this is something that they really missed out on, right? Because it is and they would have spent a lot of money with the facilities and stuff.
And of course, this was because of the pandemic.
Because of the pandemic, yes. But Tokyo, it was great. Our athletes, on a whole, that was the best our athletes performed in that. Almost all of them made the semifinals, made it out of the first round. And that was the first. We're having so many athletes getting out of the first round, getting to the semifinals. And Shade missed the final by she was the fastest non-qualifier in the history of the 400 women, for women, right? But the food was good. I ate shrimp every day. Met a lot of athletes, and that's one of the things I love about traveling, right? You get to experience different cultures, seeing how different athletes and coaches operate, right? Like for me, I'm always learning. Delia Mohammed, who was the 400-meter hurdles. She was the world champion. She was the former record holder. And we are at a practice session, and she's going over the hurdles backward. And that was something that blew my mind, because I am a former hurdler, and I was always taught never go over hurdles backward, right? But she was going over them backward. She had them lowered, but I saw that she was working on getting back down on the ground as quick as possible. So that's something there that I picked up, right, from the Olympics. And it's always a chance to learn the mindset of our athletes. And when I say our athletes, I mean Barbados athletes, the seniors. See Shane Brathwaite? I think Shane Brathwaite is the best hurdler Barbados has ever produced. He doesn't have the world title like Ryan Brathwaite, right? But the longevity that Shane has shown in this sport, the consistency, right? And I love traveling with Shane. We sit down, we have conversations, man-to-man conversations, grown conversations. We talk about where we want to see track and field in Barbados go and stuff. And that is one of the things that I always learn from other athletes. We all have this idea or this vision, but if you don't talk to the people that are in it, there'll be no progress.
I am so glad you've taken the conversation in this direction because I have a question for you that may be a bit uncomfortable for those in the administrative aspect or area within our national sports. But are we still making sport at sports? That's one.
Yes.
The other question, okay, yes. The other question I want to ask you is what is it about, say, Jamaica and the US that they seem to so consistently produce not just semifinalists, as you're here saying we actually are now producing more athletes that are making it to these semifinals at the Olympics, but the Jamaicans and the Americans. As a matter of fact, I've even heard people say that for the Caribbean, we should really just make Jamaica the hub for athletics. And as Bajans would say, call that George because of the fact that they are so consistent. Would you say that Barbados has the capability to produce consistently such a high achieving crop of athletes? Or is it a case where there's something missing from the way how we approach sports that is causing us to always seem to be hitting a ceiling of sorts?
I'm glad you came here. Barbados has the potential to do everything that Jamaica and the US, that we see their athletes doing. We just need two things: facilities and support. Right now we have a stadium that was built in the 50s, the 70s, somewhere way back there. And it's a total disgrace. When I go into the stadium, I get depressed, right? And St. Michael's School, we took our team to Maryland this year. We always try to expose our athletes to try and get scholarships and stuff. We took our athletes to Maryland this year. And a prominent Barbadian told me that Barbados has 94 athletes on track and field scholarships in the States. 94. Now that is 94 athletes that their parents don't have to look for anything, that the government don't have to look for anything. When people talk about Barbados, talk about two things: sports and Rihanna. It is time that we started investing in our athletes, giving them the support that they need. And I'm not just talking about financial support. Yes, financial support is important. When I went to Commonwealth Games last year as a coach, and I sat down, we spoke to all the athletes. They all want to be in Barbados training. But you know what they told me? Facilities, recovery work, having access to trainers and stuff where they don't have to pay this base out of money. It's very hard for an athlete to to go to work and then train and compete. It's extremely hard. So when you see professional athletes, all they do is train. When I finished college and I was in a professional camp, we would train mornings at 10 o'clock, and then we have the rest of the day to ourselves. And these guys were talking about going home and being on their PlayStation and playing Grand Theft Auto. I was like, what? You grown men, what y'all talk about? PlayStation and stuff? And that's all they would talk about every morning, right? Because their mind was at peace. They're training, and they're being paid, right? A business is taking care of them. An apparel company is taking care of them, right? We need to put those sort of things in place for our athletes too. It really guts me when we take our athletes and send them to Jamaica, right? I'm appreciative of what Jamaica is doing for us. Don't ever get me wrong with that, because right now we're not in that position to do it, because right now we're training on grass. And grass, they have potholes and stuff. So we're running up and down, and athletes get a lot of ankle injuries and hip injuries and stuff, right? Because we don't have a stadium to train in. And these are consecutive governments that all they talk about is Stadium coming, stadium coming, stadium coming. Let the stadium just be here. It's time that we get past the stadium coming. We need to have a stadium. We need to have proper facilities. Boxing, they still don't have a home. The gymnasium is great. I think where the gymnasium is, that should be a sports hub. And there's a building over there that the Chinese had built. I think that is somewhere that we could use as dorms, where we could bring in sporting teams from overseas and have camps and stuff here. There's a guy called Sean DePickney, and he and I, right before COVID, we actually sat down and spoke to the Cuban ambassador at his home. And we were on the verge of bringing a Cuban volleyball team and a Cuban track team here. And then COVID hit. See, things can be done. It's how bad do we want to do it? And will we have the support to do it? Right? There are teams that want to come to Barbados and train. Our own athletes want to come home and train. There's no reason why we cannot do it. But it calls for corporate Barbados and it calls for government. I'm one that personally think that the people of Barbados should be building the stadium. I don't think the Chinese should be building the stadium. This may be controversial, but it's my opinion. Right? I think that if we get the whole of Barbados, because we always talk about it takes a village to raise a person, or it takes a country to raise a team. Right? And I believe that if we set up a fund where Barbadians can put money into building a stadium, and then for the perimeter of the stadium, you put the names of everyone that contributed. That means that they will feel like they own the stadium, they're part of it, and it's called a national stadium, right? And then obviously the more you put in, it's really higher your name will go. Like then if corporate Barbados, when they buy in, they could get to put up their banners or whatever, their billboards or whatever. And we have a lot of construction companies here in Barbados. I feel that we can build our own stadium instead of just saying, we're waiting on the Chinese, we're waiting on the Chinese, we're waiting on the Chinese. No one will want to hear that, but that is my opinion. And I think that we can go from there and we can produce our own athletes.
Sounds to me like you spend a fair amount of your time as a coach looking at fundraising and the extent to which the athletes can be well equipped for what it is that they need to accomplish. But I do understand the lament in terms of the absence of facilities, but I still must commend you for, as they would say, doing so much with so little, because of the fact that our athletes under your care have gone on to represent Barbados internationally. When we look at the performance of our athletes, such as you mentioned, Sade and Shane, what does it take to replicate that type of performance in other athletes?
A level of consistency and time. I think one of the reasons why our athletes don't progress to the next level is the amount of time that we have that the coaches have with the athletes, and also the culture. You talked about Jamaica earlier. Jamaica's culture is sport. Our culture is academics, right? So that means another shift in the way we think. Like in 2023, we still have parents that will punish a child by taking away a positive thing in their life, taking away a sport, or you can't go to this sport after school, right? Because you're not doing this or you're not doing that. Why not take away the PlayStation? Why not tell them you can't go this weekend, right? It's positive things that are in their lives. Like we see scholarships, track and field scholarships. That is what we're big on at the St. Michael School. Actually, this year we sent out three athletes on track scholarships. We've had others going on in volleyball, basketball, squash, St. Michael's School has done that. But I'm responsible for track, so I know more about the track program and stuff. We sent out 3 athletes on track scholarships this year. Every year, you know that St. Michael's School is going to send out someone on a track scholarship. And that's because we recognize that is the goal of student athletes. We also recognize that's how they will develop and become better people, right? You don't have sports forever. We could step outside, twist our ankle or something like that, and it's gone. But if you have it up here, you can make a meaningful contribution to society. And that is what we do at St. Michael's School. That is what I do at Quantum Leap. I talked about 3 students from St. Michael's School going on scholarship. Quantum Leap has 4. The same 3 from St. Michael's School plus another one, right? And that gives me the greatest joy, right? Representing Barbados at Carifta and stuff, yeah. But after Carifta, then what? Carifta is just a stepping stone. But when students can get those scholarships and stuff, that is what helps them. That is what helps Barbados track and field. Because when they're on scholarships, they get to see the professional side of sports. They get to understand, how important my nutrition is, right? How important the mentality is, how important recovery is, right? And then they bring that back and they talk to the young ones that are here now, that are trying to go up. And that's how we operate at St. Michael's School and in Quantum Leap. That's just our way.
You mentioned recovery a couple of times, and I have heard that it's a very big business, especially as it relates to the potential Barbados would have as a destination that is so historically therapeutic. Tell me about what you see as the potential for our destination to become, as they would say, a specialized locale for sports recovery.
You know, it's one of the greatest places to recover? The beach.
Did I see you and the SMS students training on the beach during COVID?
That was Quantum Leap.
Ah, that was Quantum Leap.
Yeah, that was Quantum Leap. We started our train during COVID.
Well, not during the lockdowns where you were
right,
supposed to
right,
be.
good, right. Just make
But
that
you
clear.
know what I mean.
Yes. Yeah, we start our beach. We start with beach training because we need to get that background and build it. Right, so we start with 6 weeks on the beach. Ironically, I hate the beach. I love the water. It's just the sand I don't like to deal with. But we start out on the beach, and that is where we build our base.
Yes.
And when it comes to recovery, ice baths, those are important. Massages, very important. Right, so we have a guy called Tony Jones. Right, what he's doing in Barbados right now is quite awesome, but we haven't been exposed to it yet. And I hope he gets the platform where he can show Barbados what he's about to do, right? Because having access to cryo chambers and stuff, that's huge now. You could go on IJU, see any athlete, almost all the big athletes coming out of these chambers rather than taking an ice bath, right? But an ice bath is what we can have right now. Massage is what we can have now. The problem is that they're not readily available to a lot of the athletes because of the expenses, right? So once and it all goes back to facilities. Once we have the facilities, we do have the expertise here in Barbados, but we can do anything. And things will progress for us.
Wonderful. I am thoroughly enjoying this conversation, and part of that perhaps is my connection to SMS as a parent, but I am perhaps even more reassured having spoken with you today about the extent to which this athletics movement that is taking place here is impacting and benefiting not just the athletes themselves, but it seems to be part of the entire fabric of the St. Michael's School. Tell me about how you have been able to perhaps help some young people who have been a bit wayward to become more disciplined and focused through their sporting talent?
To be honest, I use myself and I use other athletes. So sometimes I will have athletes come and talk to another athlete. Or sometimes I will talk about my life experiences to the athletes. Right? And I always find that if you share an experience, I also I teach business at this medical school as well. And I bring real life situations into the classroom. And I've learned that when I use my experience, right, and relate it to students so that they can get a better understanding, that is when we see changes. I give an example. Rhea Hoyt. Rhea Hoyt, she was on the verge of quitting track and field.
Wow.
But people wouldn't know that. She was on the verge of quitting track and field. And she was in another club and stuff. She wasn't training with me. But she was at St. Michael's School. So I was exposed to her. And Ray and I had a lot of conversations under the auditorium. Just talking about track and field and what it can do and all that stuff. And I told her, give me 1 year. Give me 1 year to work with you. And she agreed. And she joined Quantum Leap. And we trained, and she took off in that 1 year. And now Ray is about to be a junior at San Diego State University in California, which ironically is her dream school. That's the school that she always wanted to go to. And we were able to get her that scholarship to the university that she really wanted to go to.
I think that it's so important for our youth to really have dreams to begin with, but then to have examples like Rhea, as you just shared, to me really then takes it to another level because it makes the dream seem more palpable to them. So even as they go on to these scholarships, they go on to these dream universities, tell me about some of the programs that our athletes are interested in terms of being able to graduate with the degrees that they are doing. Because for some parents, there may be this concern that the lifespan of the athlete is not that long. What are they coming away with? Give me an idea of the diversity of the courses that they are studying when they take these scholarships.
All right, well, a lot of the athletes, they study business administration. They may do kinesiology, which is the study of the body. Some of them go into physical therapy, right? Accounting. We have so many athletes that I always tell them, do not do criminology unless you plan to stay in the States, right? And we obviously know that they can't do law unless they plan to stay in the States because the law is different, right? But those are the ones that they basically study. And those are the things that they're interested in doing. And there's a market for those things here and in the States. So that is one of the things that they look at when they go overseas.
Do you find that a lot of them come back to Barbados after they finish, or do they perhaps find it too infectious, the atmosphere in the countries where they do the scholarships?
Back in my time, a lot of them were returning. But recently, I've found that a lot of them are now staying. And they're either becoming the professional athlete, or they're actually getting job opportunities over there. Right? For example, Mara Weeks, that was in Quantum Leap. I sent her to college in Nebraska. You know, think about a Barbadian athlete going to school in Nebraska. Nebraska is cold. Mara has made a life in Nebraska. She's married, she has a child, she's working, she's happy in Nebraska. Right? So some go and they stay where the opportunity presents itself, and some return home.
What is your greatest joy as a coach?
My greatest joy as a coach is seeing an athlete achieve what they want to achieve. And that's why they call me the crying coach. I would see an athlete do something and I would know where they came from, right? These struggles and stuff that they went through, and just to see them get where they want to be. We had say Josiah Paris. Josiah has been a top athlete from the time he was in first form at St. Michael's School, either winning BSAT or being in the top 3. And his goal was to get a scholarship. That was just his goal, to get a scholarship. Joe left Barbados 2 days ago to go to the University of Kansas on a full scholarship, right? So those are the things that make me feel good. If your goal is to make your school team at BSAT, and you meet that goal, you achieve that goal, I'm happy for you. I'm celebrating with you. Everyone will have different goals. But once you reach what you want to do, to achieve what you want to do, once you have that drive and you're able to be disciplined and stuff and get what you want, that is what makes me happy.
Well, thank you so much for sharing again. I think that ultimately your experience, even from way back at St. Augustine, as you shared with us, that seminal moment for you where you transitioned from athlete to coach, and the humbling experience that it was, I feel as though you would have used that to empower you in terms of your philosophy as a coach and the way how you train the athletes. It all translates into the level of excellence that is demonstrated. Last question for you, as it relates to all these wonderful glittering trophies behind you, what would you say was the most memorable one of all?
The girls winning the first title. And that one, even to this day, if I go on YouTube and I watch that 4x4, I start to cry. I know what's going to happen, but as soon as Rhea takes that baton in the 4x4, I start to cry. And that's because I came here in 2003, and I took over the track program in 2004. And we were always knocking at the door for that girls' title. We got the boys' title before the girls' title, right? But because we were always knocking at the door for that girls' title, that very first one is one that really, really stands out. And the thing about that, I always remember before the 4x4, we were trailing Foundation by 2 points. And we needed to win. We had to beat Foundation. And I ran down in the tunnel to where when the girls were coming out, and I stopped them. I was like, listen, we all worked so hard for this. Don't care what, you have to cross that line first. You must cross that line first. We cannot be knocking at the door, we gotta lick it down. And Rhea looked at me and she was like, you got this. And when she said that, I was calm because I knew there's no one's going to beat him. I was calm, I was relaxed. And even if you see when she crosses the line, that is the one that stands out for me.
Awesome. We've been chatting with Gabriel Burnett, OLY, the head coach and founder of Quantum Leap, and the head coach here at the St. Michael's School over the Cougars, discussing the excellence that they have continuously demonstrated under his tutelage and the secret in the sauce. It certainly, from where I sit, is the whole student approach, looking at the student as a total individual. And I commend him and the SMS for the wonderful strides, literally, that they continue to make. I am Crystal Austin, your host. Thank you for tuning in to One on One. We look forward to you joining us on our next episode.